On today's episode, I sat down with the comedian, producer, and host of the podcast Handsome, Tig Notaro. I was excited to talk to Tig because basically she's just an awesome human. She's somehow funny as fuck, but also full of compassion. Plus, I love her signature dry-witted voice. And you know how everyone has a pet voice, kind of just the way they talk to their pets? Well, I just had to hear Tig's, and I forced her to do it. Anyway, I hope you find something in our chat to connect to, and thanks for joining us on Reclaiming. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Audible. Love getting lost in heart-pounding stories? Audible delivers thrills of every kind. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat today. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/reclaiming. Thank you to our exclusive fashion partner, Reformation. I honestly can't tell you how many of their pieces have become my go-to favorites. Their sweaters have this incredible way of being both polished and comfortable. And in fact, when we recorded my own reclaiming story for the podcast, I was wearing the same Reformation sweater as the producer interviewing me, but thankfully we had the Clara on in different colors. Their clothes work for all moments in my life, whether it's a casual day out or a more formal occasion. I always find myself reaching for my Reformation pieces. Visit Reformation.com to see why they're one of my favorite brands for stylish and sustainable fashion. Hi, Tig.
Hi, Monica.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I was thinking about how I think we first met at a library fundraiser, and I came up to you and like a Tig Notaro fan cliche, I told you this story about how the first time I heard your Taylor Dane bit, it was actually during my dark decade when I would kind of drive far places to waste time to get past the days. I laugh now, but it was pretty bad at the time. But I was on the 134 driving to Pasadena, and I heard you tell your Taylor Dane story on This American Life.
Yeah.
And I laughed so hard, I almost fucking crashed my car. So basically, Tig Notaro, you almost killed me. That would have been a headline. But So I was talking to the producers about, when we were talking about this chat, I think one person did not know you're Taylor Dane. So can you give a condensed, I'm not going to ask you to totally perform, but
I don't know if I can give a condensed.
Okay.
All right.
Or not condensed.
No, I want more time with you. You told me this is new to you, the podcasting world.
Yes.
And I want to be fully submerged in the podcasting world with you, Monica. So I will quickly go through this. I ran into the 80s pop singer Taylor Dane multiple times, and the first time I ran into her, I am a fan, and I genuinely went up to her at an intimate dinner party, and we had a mutual friend, and I said, "Oh my gosh, sorry to bother you. I just have to tell you I love your voice." And she just turned and said, "Yeah, I don't do that anymore." And then she turned away, and I was mortified. And so every time that I ran into her after that, I decided to turn it into an experiment, and I just repeated the exact same sentence every single time that I saw her. And I wasn't really as known then, so because people are always like, "How did she not know who you were?" And I was like, it was a long time ago. And so every time it was just a whole nother experience of telling her that. And so that's the gist of it.
And did she come to eventually recognize you as, oh, this is the person who says the same thing to me?
No, but her manager or agent called my manager saying that she had heard that I was telling the story about her. And
so Hollywood.
Yeah, but it wasn't
no offense, Taylor Dane, if you're listening to our podcast.
But she wasn't even upset.
Okay.
It was just more of like, she was kind of amused. And then, and when we met, I was expecting her to be defensive and deny that she had been like kind of rude and shut off to me. And she was like, "Nah, that sounds like me. I probably had a couple drinks in me." And so I appreciated that she owned it and she had a sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
Because I know what I experienced.
Right.
And so it would have been a bummer if she was like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't act like that.
Gaslighting you. Taylor Dane, the gaslighter.
No, she full on was like, that sounds like me. So, yeah.
And I now think of that every time I'm on the 134 going to Pasadena, which is not as often as in my dark decade. I'm surprised the Target there didn't go out of business.
I remember meeting you, and because it was the first time I had met you, and you came up and you were like, oh my gosh, and you started telling me your story about how you almost drove off the road. And I remember thinking, is this Monica Lewinsky? Like, I feel like I'm talking to Monica Lewinsky right now. I was so distracted. And then you introduced yourself. I was like, okay, I thought I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that very well.
It's funny. I don't know why this is what's coming up for me, but when I was job hunting after graduate school, people would sometimes say, well, why don't you, and it was hard, nobody would hire me. People would say, well, why don't you just put a different name on your CV, which is like a great, I get it. I understand the thinking behind it. But I would always think, and then when I walk in the room and the person's going, oh, they look a lot like Monica Lewinsky, you know? So that whole thing of, I still find it weird sometimes of, do you introduce yourself? Do you not? Does someone recognize you? Do they not?
Yeah. I know for myself, I mean, different lives and stories, but I for a while when people would recognize me and they'd be like, I feel like I know you, you look familiar, I used to be like, oh yeah, I don't know, and then I realized it just makes it so much easier if I just go, oh yeah, I'm an actor, comedian, and then just go about my life. Because then they'd be like, where do I know you from? And they follow me around the store. Like, I feel, did we work together? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think,
When I lived in London and went to graduate school, I would take the tube to school and I would have that thing, I'm now in another country. And men would sometimes like look at me and look away and look at me and that whole thing. And they're trying to place me. And I never did it. But I always thought, one of these days I'm going to go up to one of them and go, I can't believe you don't remember me. That was the best night of my life. Like some version of just to fuck with someone. Just because that would have been fun. But
if I ever said that to a man, I have had fantasies about.
Why I'm laughing is because I rewatched one of your specials, and so there was the moment where you're saying about your fiance, and then you said he, and everybody in the audience laughed. And so that's why.
Yes.
So.
Well, he's now my wife.
But wait, were you right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been with a man?
I mean, growing up, I had wild crushes on guys and friends, and I've had versions of boyfriends, I guess, but not really. It was more, I think, just really liking my guy friends and
but not wanting to touch them intimately.
Like, no, thank you. Yeah.
So I know that recently you were in Sundance, right?
Yeah.
For a documentary that you are producing.
Yes.
Okay. And it is called, I have it written, Come See Me in the Good Light.
Come See Me in the Good Light.
Remember the title so you look like you know what you're doing.
Yes.
But
it's Come See Me in the Good Light, and it's such a beautiful film. And I have, if I can brag for a second.
No, tell all the things.
It won the top award at Sundance this year. Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
I was like, wait, for documentaries? And they were like, no, for the whole festival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And our director was like, our film, this kind of film doesn't win that prize.
Okay.
Ever. Basically, it's about my very dear old pal, Andrea Gibson, who is a non-binary poet with stage 4 ovarian cancer.
Wow.
Lives up in the mountains of Colorado with their partner Meg, who is also a poet. And I was on the phone with our mutual friend. I used to live in Colorado. Our mutual friend Steph lived in Colorado. And Steph and I were on the phone talking about just different things with Andrea and Andrea's podcast, trying to get that edited and produced and on the air while they're going through this tough time, and other things like talking about Andrea's health and just really staying connected, trying to figure out how to be helpful, because Steph now lives in Santa Fe, I'm in LA, and Steph said, I feel like this moment in Andrea's life would make a really great documentary. And I was like, oh, like I had such clear vision, like I've never had before when Steph said that. And I was like, I could truly, when we were standing there at the premiere at Sundance, I said, I truly saw all the way to this moment where we're standing here. It felt like we made exactly the movie that I think Steph and I imagined in that first conversation. And I got on the phone and started calling friends that I knew loved and respected Andrea, because Andrea's a very well-known poet, has published 8 books, would sell out theaters around the world. I immediately got on the phone, started calling all of my friends that I knew were fans of Andrea and Meg's, and was just like, hey, you want to kick down some cash? And they did, just like left and right. And other people reached out to their friends and people they knew, and we just started really raising some money. And I reached out to these filmmakers, the director Ryan White and his producing partner, Jessica, and they've made like 20 documentaries. They did the Pamela doc. They did the Serena Williams doc, Dr. Ruth, just so many incredible movies. And
mostly women?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No. But I reached out and I just said, hey, because they had said, we'd love to work with you someday. We'd love to do something funny. And I bring them this.
You're like, hey, ovarian cancer, stage 4, super funny.
Yeah. I mean, but Andrea and Meg are both deeply funny people. And so I give them kind of a light pitch, and I just said, you have to check them out, and you're either in or you're not. You either get it or you don't. And they were like, okay. And a poet, and it just wasn't like, wow, this is an obvious thing to somebody that doesn't know these people. And but I know, and my friend Steph knew. We were like, this is something.
Yeah.
So Andrea's also the poet laureate of Colorado.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, so 3 days later, they texted me, the filmmakers, saying, are you sure Andrea would want to make a film at this point in their life? And I said, I can confirm, yes. And they were like, okay. And they were on a plane days later, flew out to Colorado and started filming immediately. And they said that when they flew home, they were in tears, just like immediately attached to these people and devastated by the thought that,
how's she doing?
It's tough. It's a really tough time right now, like exceptionally tough. So
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. Yes. But the movie is extraordinarily life-affirming and hilarious. And when we screened the movie at Sundance, Andrea was able to be there. Oh. You could feel the emotion. It was so heavy. You could hear the tears, but then also the funny moments. It was like a Will Ferrell movie. It truly.
I'm a big Will Ferrell fan.
Yeah, the level of laughter. So I think people go into watching the film thinking it's just going to be devastating, but it is so life-affirming.
Yeah. Do you have any friends who are not funny?
I am very drawn to it, whether people are funny or they are. They have a great sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know that I've ever really made that distinction.
Well, it's fun when somebody's, a good laugher. And like Stephanie, my wife's mother, talk about This American Life. She told me a joke once and she couldn't get through it. She was laughing so hard. And I was like, Carol, what is this joke? And and I'm talking like minutes dying laughing. And she finally told me it was a joke she made up. And I said, this is the worst joke I've ever heard. And I said, it makes no sense. And I said, will you come to Largo and open for me and tell this joke? And she was like, oh, people they're not going to laugh. And I was like, exactly. That's why I want you to come. And so she decides to do this. And it was so funny because when I introduced her, I said, my next guest, her last time on stage was for her 4th grade piano recital. Please welcome my mother-in-law, Carol Ashton. And she walked out on stage with her purse on her
my God.
And I stayed on stage with her, and I ribbed her the whole time she was telling her joke. And it turned into 15 minutes. And I was at dinner with a large group, and I was talking about this, and one of the producers of This American Life was there, and they were like, Tig, do you have audio of that? I feel like this would make a good segment for the show. And sure enough, they did a segment on my mother-in-law telling the most unfunny joke you've ever heard that she wrote.
Oh, my God.
So I'm surrounded by her, she's not the funniest person, but she's a good laugher.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's funny. She's funny in her own right. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find that segment now.
Yeah,
and
it's
listen.
good.
But back to Andrea and your documentary. So do you have is it coming out?
We sold it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to imagine. Oh, we won the whole fucking thing. We're selling this.
Well, it
Oh, that's not a guarantee.
It wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't buying things as much.
Yeah.
Also, not a lot of excitement around the LGBTQ world these days. A lot of pullback on content in that world. So it wasn't a slam dunk. But
Wow.
we have sold it, and we are very thrilled about our partner.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
we're really the fact that it was crazy because we were all hunkered down in 10 of us in an Airbnb at Sundance, and because Andrea's wasn't feeling great, we really just went to the screenings, came back, sat by the fire, had tea. We'd go to do very targeted press, come back, hang out at the house. We were not.
Oh my God, that sounds like heaven.
We called it snuggle down.
Yeah.
We were not having the typical Sundance experience. And so the only thing we were going on was, oh my gosh, this is playing so well. People are really liking it. But we weren't at parties and events. And so we didn't get a vibe of how things were going. So when we left the festival and found out we won that award, I was like, I was stunned.
Yeah.
And then it sells. It was green lights the whole way.
I'm super intrigued by this idea of kind of having a vision for something, all the doors opening, it ending up exactly as you had imagined. Do you feel like that's now going to change the trajectory of how you move forward in projects, or because that sounds like a dream?
Oh,
right?
It was such a dream. And I was on the phone with my childhood friend, and she was talking about how her son got into business school at UT in Austin. And she said it really felt like a win because it's really hard to get into that school.
Yeah.
And I guess only 2 kids from his class got in.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, when she said that, I thought, first of all, I have a really incredible life, and so that is not lost on me. But, and I don't mean to sound obvious and cheesy, my wife was a win, and my kids are a win, and my health is a win. All of those obvious things, and I really feel that way. I haven't ever felt like, oh, I won. Like, and not even just awards,
right?
But just an experience where I was like, this feels like a win.
Yeah.
This feels like a win.
When in alignment, in flow.
Yes, because I've been nominated for awards. If I won that award, I don't think I would have felt like it was a win, because I maybe there's some feeling I have about the project, or maybe I think it could have been better, or any of that kind of stuff. This movie, Come See Me in the Good Light, it felt like, after my friend mentioned that about her son, I was like, that's so interesting, because I just felt like, and it's really not because of the award or selling it.
No, I get it.
It was like, this feels like it's beyond what I dreamed. It's so beyond what I dreamed, but I did dream of it going all the way and having a great response, and but there was just something where I was like, that felt like a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you mentioned your health and your kids and your wife, because you had a crazy period.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
and that was
It was 2012. I had pneumonia,
okay.
And then I took antibiotics, which caused me to contract an intestinal disease called C. diff.
What is that?
Well, C. diff is a bacteria that's in your gut, and it's great. It's helpful. Nothing wrong
So
with
we
that.
normally, so we
Yeah.
all have C. diff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I believe.
Or have the bacteria, right?
What happens is sometimes if you take antibiotics, you can have an adverse response, and it'll clear out all of the bacteria in your body, in your gut, and it'll just leave C. diff alone to thrive on its own.
Oh,
and
weird.
it just eats your insides, and it's like
Yikes.
I couldn't eat food. I was hospitalized. I lost like over 20 pounds. It was tough. And then I got out of the hospital, and then my mother tripped and hit her head and died. And then my girlfriend and I, at the time, we split up. And then I was diagnosed with invasive cancer. And that was all in a 4-month period of time.
4 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really rough.
Yeah.
Really rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the worst of the three?
I mean,
I
guess
mean, like,
my
that's
mother.
Probably a shitty question.
No,
right?
no.
Like,
But I'm very well known for having cancer. Although, as far as illnesses go, C. diff was absolutely terrifying because I had never been sick and unable to turn my health around. My health wasn't turning around, and it's terrifying when you're just slipping away. But it was all terrifying. Like the whole thing was beyond rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had gotten out of the hospital late March, and my birthday is March 24th. And my mother, the last I heard from her, she left me a message singing happy birthday to me. And then
Oh my gosh.
she tripped a couple of days later. When my stepfather called me, I thought it was my mother trying to connect with me again because we weren't able to connect after she had left me that birthday message. And he called to say that she had fallen and hit her head and wasn't going to make it. She was never conscious again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was tough.
Can you tell me just like a little bit about the decision that you made to go on stage at Largo days after your breast cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, I think I was just in that place where you can find yourself in life where you've lost everything. And, I had seen how quickly health and life can just go away. You can take it for granted, and I do not anymore. But just with my health and then my mother tripping and dying, I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to live through this. I'm so deathly ill. And I was holding my pants up with just my finger in my belt loop.
You had lost so much weight.
I had lost so much weight.
The C. diff.
Yeah, and I didn't go on a shopping spree to get new clothes.
Really?
I was deathly
Where was
ill.
the sponsor when you needed it? A clothing sponsor.
Oh my gosh. And so I think I had never been so personal on stage. I had made more observational and some personal stuff, but not really. And I just felt like I love stand-up so much, and I want to be able to do it again. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna ever be able to do stand-up again because I didn't know where my health and life was leading. And so I just thought, I want to do stand-up one more time. And I also realized I'm not going to be able to go on stage and just talk about some funny thing I saw. I need to share what I'm going through. And I remember I ran it by a couple of friends of mine that were comedians that I respect so much, and they encouraged me not to because they were feeling protective of me. They were like, that could be really tough. And I was like, I felt so compelled. I could not be going through what I was going through and not talk about it. So I went on stage, and it's funny because I always tell people, it's hard for me to hear that audio, not because it was a hard time in my life, but because I am a perfectionist with my stand-up, and it was off the cuff kind of, and I was nervous, and you can hear I was maybe even about to cry when I walked out. I was like, "Hello, good evening. I have cancer," and I can hear it in my voice, but I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought maybe the audience was just going to stare at me while I bombed, and then I would leave stage and then go die somewhere. That would be the last performance of my life. But I just felt like it was worth the risk because I really had nothing to lose.
Wow.
And I had no idea that people at that show were going to be going off and blogging and tweeting, and it went viral and ended up being the #1 selling comedy album of the year.
God. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. But I didn't know. I went home and went to sleep and then woke up and it had gone viral, and I didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
I didn't even understand.
Right. Wow.
But it was a risk, and then it wasn't, in a way, because I didn't have any other choice.
So you said you were going on stage and you were nervous. And do you think that in the course of doing this piece, that it became more and more comfortable to you to be talking about this publicly?
Oh, yeah. I felt like everybody in that audience was exactly who needed to be there that night because they carried me through that moment. And there's this really wonderful, just tiny little moment where I said to the audience, should I stop talking about this? And this guy yells out, "No, this is fucking incredible. Don't ever stop." And I was like, it's so touching, like when you hear it on the album, even in the moment. But I had been on a tour. I was opening, this was like, 2011 maybe. I was opening for Sarah Silverman
I love Sarah.
on tour.
Yeah.
We were on a bus tour, and she had a tour manager, and that tour manager is Jess, the producer of Come See Me in the Good Light. She was working as Sarah's tour manager, and Jess and I hit it off like crazy on that tour and kept in touch. And she was making these documentaries, and I would always reach out and be like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this film. I loved it. Congrats. This is so great." And then she told me that she had tickets to that show, and she was sick, and she gave them to her friend, and he was like, "Oh, I took all of my gay guy friends, and we all went." He said, "I told them all, oh, this comedian's supposed to be really funny. Jess loves her." And it was Ryan, the director of Come See Me in the Good Light. He was there at that show when I announced that I had cancer. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Did your relationship to time change? Did your relationship to sort of how you saw your life and think about those things?
I mean, everything changed for me after that. I feel like I was just on cruise control in life before 2012. I don't know who I was. I don't know what I was doing. I truly, it's that bittersweet thing of I would never want to go through that again. And of course, I am so devastated to lose my mother, especially meeting Stephanie and having our sons. Like she would have, devoured Stephanie and my sons. Like, but Stephanie believes my mother brought us together. So if we've been out to dinner and there's like a song comes on, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my mother loves this song." And then the next song comes on, I'm like, "Oh my God, my mother loved this song too." And then the next one, "Oh my gosh, this was like one of her." And Stephanie's like, "And so you think this is just playing for no good reason?" And I'm like, "I don't know, kind of." And she's like, "How dare you?" So she's very into all of that.
Woo woo. I call it woo woo. I'm very woo woo.
I don't think I am, but Stephanie is the first person that came along in my life where I'm like, I love that she's like that. I'm not really like that, but she is. And I think previously I would have been like, I'm not into that, or I can't date somebody that's into that. Or whereas with her, I'm like, I'm all in. Yeah. And I love that she thinks that my mother brought us together.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much to Audible, our presenting sponsor. Are you looking for your next big thrill?
Audible's got you covered with all kinds of adventure right at your fingertips. Whether you're into heart-racing mysteries, epic quests, or fantasy, they've got stories that'll keep you hooked. You'll love diving into gripping titles that keep you guessing until the final moment. Experience exclusive, captivating Audible originals you won't find anywhere else. Want to know what everyone will be talking about before they're talking about it? Be the first to hear anticipated new releases and discover must-listen bestsellers that will grab your attention. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat on Audible. Start your adventure today. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/reclaiming. That's audible.com/reclaiming. Thanks so much to our sponsor, Reformation. I want to take a second to talk about one of my favorite clothing brands, Reformation. You've probably seen Reformation on Instagram or at a wedding. They make the best guesting dresses. But if you're like me, you may have thought that's all they do. Well, you're in for a pleasant surprise. Last year, they worked with yours truly and Vote.org on a campaign to empower voters to take part in the democratic process and show off their workwear. From doing the campaign and getting to know the brand even better, I love their sweaters, blouses, workwear, shoes, and bags. But most important, I love how confident I feel in their stuff. Plus, it really holds up since they make everything with super high-quality, sustainable materials. Reformation is also a brand that uses their growing platform to do good in the world, and especially in the sustainable fashion space. As they say, being naked is the #1 most sustainable option. Reformation is #2. If you're looking for clothes you want to feel great in and feel better about, head to reformation.com.
Yeah, it just really changed everything. And I just saw such amazing sides of strangers and loved ones, family, friends. And it just made me even more confident in, I want to give back. I want to be a good person. I want to be there for people. I know what it's like to be desperate, really desperate. And then also finding a boundary of like, I've given in this way, I've spent my time in this way, I've donated money or time in however I have. And then also I don't have to do that all the time, every time.
I struggle with boundaries are a thing I'm always working on, trying to figure out how to draw, figure out, I think too, also this whole thing of how do you respect someone else's boundary? I mean, what's your relationship to boundaries? Did it change because of this, or how did you?
Fully. I mean,
okay.
I really don't struggle with saying no to things or just being as upfront as I need to be. One of my favorite, I talk about it all the time, but the book are you familiar with Martha Beck? Have you read her The Way of Integrity?
No.
Book? Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
It's just basically, making sure you're going through life with as much, in the most honest way you can. And that means from white lies to...
Wait, no white lies? You're not allowed white lies in the integrous way?
I mean,
shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is unbelievable the weight you drop in your head and your soul, and that you can just kind of move forward. I feel like if, like, my wife reached out to me when I was working in Toronto, and she said basically she was upset with me about something, and she put it in an email. And what I noticed was when I started reading the email, I wasn't like, oh God, like, I didn't feel scared because I knew I've been honest with her. I knew I've been forthcoming. Like, I was curious what I had done to upset her. It was more curious. I was like,
you're an emotionally mature person.
I'm not perfect. I'm just telling you
but
that,
but it's, I mean, I think I was just reading some meme on Instagram, that was kind of spotting emotionally immature people. And even though I work on myself a lot, I have a high EQ. In some ways, I think I'm emotionally immature. And I was ticking a bunch of those boxes. And it was saying an emotionally mature person is curious when someone comes to them with a problem. They don't get defensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I always get defensive, but I think I just I think my fear of abandonment kicks in.
Yeah.
So versus being curious. So I'm really interested by that. So you were curious.
I was curious. I was just like, oh, whoa, I've done something wrong. I wonder what this is. Turns out it was a manageable situation, but her feelings were hurt, and I was like, you're right. I'm sorry, and I see it, and I won't do it again. And she said, well, that was easy. And I was like,
let me get my laundry list out.
Yeah. And it's not like all of our conflict is handled that easily every time.
No. We can read about those kinds of things in a book, or, you hear it in a lecture or talk or something, but you've actually, it's really possible because Tig Notaro's done it. So,
but my life it terrifies me to think who I would be if 2012 hadn't happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really something.
Yeah. I think a lot about, because I was so young in 1998 in comparison to kind of all the other major players, I lost so much that I was forced in that way to have to work on myself and to evolve.
Yeah.
And I think there were a lot of people who were at a point in their life where they had enough power and status and age that they kind of weren't forced to evolve at all.
Yeah.
And I feel so grateful for that. I feel so, I wish things had been different or easier, but I all the work that I did, I just feel so grateful to have been able to evolve.
Yeah. I love directness. I love honesty. I love those moments because it's a real challenge. Not to be honest, but like to understand each other in a moment where there's some conflict.
I'm very impressed. So I don't know that means anything.
I'm a very flawed person, but I'm trying my best. And 2012 was game changing to me.
Yeah.
And I don't have time for certain people that I used to have time for. I don't have time for certain obligations or jobs or all that kind of stuff. I think what also drives me is that I have a little PTSD. I have a lot of PTSD from that time period.
Yeah.
And so getting that phone call from my stepfather, I thought it was my mother calling again. I thought I was going to hear happy birthday,
Yeah.
And it was
my mom would be exactly the same way.
Yeah. And I had already gotten that message from my mother, so I thought I was going to hear it again. And then it was my stepfather, Tig. It was so like grave, devastating. And so certain phone calls I get a little nervous about. And it makes me want to be certain about what I'm spending my time doing, because getting a bad phone call like that, there's never a good time. But I really don't want to get a call like that if I've signed up to do something I do not want to spend my time doing, because it's going to be an even worse feeling.
Yeah.
If you're spending time with somebody that is not good for you or is just toxic in some way, and it's just like you're like, yeah, I'll go have lunch, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
That's where it's like you say no, you don't want to do that with your time. And also on top of that, I don't want to get a bad phone call if I'm spending my time.
And are you still close to your stepdad?
Well, he actually, in a crazy twist, because life is insane, I took my mother off of life support on March 28th, 2012. My stepfather ended up dying of C. diff, the disease I had.
Oh, my God.
I took him off life support March 28th, 10 years later.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Really crazy. Really crazy.
Is March 28th like a hard day for you? I'm a very aware of the date person.
I'm very aware. Like as soon as March starts, I'm like March 1st. I was on the TV show The Office, and it aired on March 1st, and I was like, oh, my throat hurts, and that was the beginning of I started getting
the pneumonia. Yeah,
the pneumonia, then the C. diff, then
the mom,
my mother.
Yeah, I have a friend who lost her brother in September, and I think maybe also her dad at some, whatever it is, there's like, she has a 2-week period in September where it's sort of that, oh, this is, and everybody knows, okay, that's
I went into the hospital.
It's the tender time, I do that on January 16th for me. So every year, January 16th is the day that I had the FBI sting. And so the first year I was like, it's 1:01 p.m. as the, this was when they flashed the badge and did it and sort of went down the dark hole. And then eventually, I think it was the next year, I kind of was like, I'm not doing this again. Like, I'm going to celebrate that I survived.
Yeah.
And so I celebrate every year Survivor's Day. That's what we call it in my family.
As far as celebrating dates, I always, with my cancer diagnosis, it's July 25th, and I always celebrate that. And people are like, that's weird. And I'm like, but to me, that was my second chance. I caught the cancer and turned it around,
rebirth.
And also, I feel so elevated by my life with Stephanie and our sons that from March, when all of that starts coming up, I kind of just feel it just really brings me back to how thankful I am for my life. And I just feel so elevated by my family. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
How did you and Stephanie meet?
We met when I was in March. We were filming a movie, and we were kind of love interests on the movie. And
which movie?
It's called In a World.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
So it's just was a little independent film, but it was great. Our friend Lake Bell wrote it, directed it, starred in it. And I was really sick I didn't know what was wrong with me. And so they kept letting me lie down on this little pallet on the ground. And on days that I couldn't come in, they were giving my lines to like Nick Offerman and other actors and stuff. And I was just like, what? I didn't know what was wrong with me. And meanwhile, I had pneumonia, C. diff, and invasive cancer. So we did that movie, and then my life fell apart, and I was out of the world for like 6 months, going through all of the emotional and physical stuff. And then I resurfaced, and I ran into Stephanie. She's a part of like the UCB comedy world, sketch, improv stuff. I ran into her, and we really enjoyed working together, but I was in a relationship at the time. She actually had never dated a woman. And so we exchanged numbers because the movie was going to Sundance. And I told her, I said, oh, by the way, I'm not a big texter. I said, I went to lunch with this girl who texted me, or to coffee. She texted me afterwards saying how much she enjoyed having coffee. And not that I thought Stephanie was into me or was going to text me a lot. I just told her the story because I just said, here's my number, but I'm not great. And then that girl knew I had a show that night, and she texted me saying, have a great show. And I was like, wow. And then at night, like 11 o'clock, she texted again saying, sweet dreams. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And Stephanie was like, well, I'm not a big texter either. And we went our separate ways. And then that night, she texted me at like 11 saying sweet dreams. And I was like, oh my gosh, this girl is so funny.
Yeah.
And then we both couldn't stop texting each other.
Okay.
But we didn't see each other in person. And then I was writing my book, and she said, oh, I'm out with friends at La Poubelle at this bar having a drink if you want to come by. And she was with the whole group. It happened to be Valentine's Day. And people are always like, yeah. But there was nothing. Really wasn't that. It was just like she was with a group of people. And I was writing my book. It was late at night. And I thought, I can't go down there because I started to think I had a crush on her. And then I was thinking, wait, she's not into me. I don't need to shower or anything. I can just go down there. So I threw on this like wool sweater with an eagle on the back and like went down to say hi at this bar. And she's with their whole group. I walk in. My sweater's white. Hers was dark blue, wool sweater with an eagle on the back. Those Canadian wool sweaters. I was like, oh my gosh. And I said, we should switch sweaters. And so we exchanged sweaters. And her friend who was sitting at the table, this guy goes, you two get together. I'll take a picture of you. And we went to put our arms around each other, and we started kissing. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, really.
Okay.
And I am not a public display person.
Okay.
Stephanie had never kissed a woman. As soon as we touch each other, we start kissing. And then we end up, making out the whole night. And then
Too bad you didn't shower.
And so then she emails me the next day, like a 50,000 page email telling me how much she likes me, but that she's not gay and that she doesn't want to mislead me, but that she really enjoys talking to me and hanging out and thinks I'm so funny. And I was just reading it going, ugh, because I was like, I really like her. But I thought I can't really push back because if she's not into it.
Right.
And so I just wrote, as a joke, okay, dyke. And she said it made her laugh so hard, and she thought, I like this person. Yeah, so we're 12 years in, and
yeah, that's so funny. So
Yeah.
before okay boomer was okay dyke.
yeah.
Let the record show I've made Tig Notaro laugh.
Yes.
Like that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And now you've got two boys,
Yeah, we have.
right?
Yeah, they're fraternal twins. They will be 9 in June, and they're just the coolest. And yeah,
My nephew's 9, so I know that.
Oh, okay.
That age.
Yeah.
Is, like,
Yeah.
it's a very. They'll still give you hugs.
Oh, yeah.
And still be snuggly.
Yeah.
But you can see
They're getting
this sort
kind of
of
cool.
Right.
Yeah.
You can see puberty is not too far away.
Yes,
Which is
yes.
terrifying.
Yeah,
So,
I know. We're like, we're gonna hang on to this as much as possible.
I was reminded that you had said this really kind thing about me on Late Night with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
And do you want to tell everybody in the world who listens to my podcast this nice compliment, just like the whole story? And
Well, I was booked on Colbert, and I show up, and I find out Bill Clinton is the other guest.
who's that?
And I thought, oh my gosh. I immediately thought about when I had met you. And, I was already a stand-up comedian when that whole story broke, but that's not really my style. I'm not drawn to like current events or politics.
Blowjob jokes.
Yeah, none of that kind of stuff would.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
wasn't my
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So I wasn't ever like it wasn't in my past of like making fun of you, but I
Thank you.
knew that people did. But don't thank me because I didn't really think much about it.
Right.
It was kind
So
of
you
that.
laughed, which is
I don't even know if I laughed.
Right.
Because I
Okay.
don't really. I'm not really into that kind of humor. But I don't even think it even registered with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't think much about it. I think that was kind of where so many people were at that time. But when I met you at that event, I was like, God, she is so awesome. And so, well, you were just so nice to talk to. And you seemed like you had a great sense of humor. And
Well,
you
I
seemed,
thought you were funny,
Well,
so
yeah,
obviously,
you were a good laugher. And you seemed smart and all of these things. And it just really made an impact on me. And I remember walking away thinking like, God, that is so crazy what can happen to somebody and the perception of someone. So I go on, and you and I had, been very loosely in touch here or there, but I couldn't claim that you were my close friend.
Right.
But I had respect for you and I liked you. And so I go on the show, and Bill is the other guest. And I'm like, oh, this feels weird, And so I just felt like, I think part of what I was talking about was this project I was doing with Jennifer Aniston at the time.
Okay.
And it was called First Ladies. And it was a movie, and Netflix, it was a project they ended up getting rid of during the pandemic. But it was, she and I were going to play, she was going to be the first lady and I was going to be her wife. And so I was talking about that project. And I thought, well, this will be perfect. I can make a comment very naturally as we talk about, the White House. And, I think Stephen, he didn't even know I was going to say anything, but he made some comment about an intern. And I said, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, oh, well, speaking of, I just want to say, and I actually don't remember exactly what I said, but I know that my feeling was that you had been kind of taken down in this moment, and you're a really
human.
a human. You're a smart. There's a reason you got that job. But it was a moment where I was like, I have to say something because I don't feel comfortable just being on this show with him and not speaking up for you in some way.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
no, it means a lot. I think those are important things in private conversations and public conversations. But in fact, my best friend from college just sent me a text last weekend. Oh, fuck, I didn't listen to the song. She sent me a song, which I didn't listen to yet, but something, and she had made reference to, it was like, oh, well, those were in the days when I used to have to defend you, you know? And so, but that, you know, they would, or it would be, you know, it was sort of a joke among us even of people would say, well, what's Monica like? And if they said anything positive, they go, well, what's she really like? You know, like, oh, okay. You know, that there must be something really wrong with me. But I think those things are, they're important to me. They're really important to me.
They're important to me too.
You know, and so thank you.
Of course. I mean, I wasn't even thinking, oh, you'll for sure hear it, or that there wasn't anything other than like, I really liked you when I met you, and it made me really reflect on what had happened and who you were and the perception that was out there. And I'm very curious to go back and watch that because I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, I got to get this in there. And I remember being like, you can't cut that out. Please. I was like, you know, but you know, Stephen was like, yeah, totally good with it.
Yeah. I actually just met him and did his show to launch the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was nice. So it was sweet. My aunt and cousin came and were in the audience. So it's sort of a nice, I don't know, it's nice. It's nice to be able to share sometimes some of these more positive things with my family. So, you know, have you always, like, had you read the Martha Beck Integrity book at that point? Have you always used your voice in that way?
I mean, in the way that I did about you?
On Colbert, yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I feel like it's really interesting. I feel like I took a lot of risks as a child and not great risks.
Like, example?
I mean, anywhere from, I started smoking when I was in elementary school.
Oh my God.
I dropped.
Serious?
Oh, I was Huckleberry Tig.
Okay.
I was like, yeah. I mean, I failed 3 grades. I dropped out of high school. I have a 7th grade education. I just would do reckless things. Aside from that, like, I don't even like sharing it because I don't want to give anyone ideas of what to do. But I would just do stupid things, and I was, you know, class clown, all of that kind of stuff. And I would take risks in that kind of world of being funny or a rebel, you know. And then I feel like when I got older, especially after 2012, and I felt way more centered and understood who I was, I feel like my risks shifted into a different way, whether it was speaking out in your defense on the same show as Bill Clinton or having cancer and then doing half of my stand-up comedy special on HBO without my shirt on. Yeah. You know, like those are the kind of risks that I started taking that I feel like I've just always kind of taken risks but as far as honesty and integrity, I feel like I've always been honest in a way of like, I'll tell you how I feel, but I always think of my brain as an attic that I don't ever want to go into and have to go and blow off dust and see what this box is that I'm storing. You know what I mean? I want to have a clear attic.
God, that's so interesting.
And
does that mean living with no regrets?
It's kind of like when Stephanie sent me that email and she had an issue with me. I didn't have to dust off any boxes because I wasn't hiding anything. I just had a conflict that came up and I could just handle it directly. I think that in 2012, when I had my big turning point, I wanted to make sure that as much of my life that I could make feel congruent that everything was as much in shape and straightforward and honest. I can tell people how I feel. I can express how I feel. I can do what I really want to do in a more certain and congruent way than before 2012.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I would have had that confidence. I think becoming a stand-up comedian, I think coming out, I think going through everything in 2012 has given me so much confidence that it's like
you're lucky, because I've gone through a lot of shit too, and I don't think I have confidence in some ways, but I think I still lack confidence or feelings of self-worth in others. So it's just interesting to me, because I think we're only a few years apart. I'll be 52 in July.
Okay, I'll be 54 in this month.
So it's so interesting to sit here and think, I'm so inspired by someone who's the same age. But on one of the interviews I did, I interviewed this young woman, and I was like, I'm so inspired by somebody 20 years younger than me and her life philosophy. So,
I mean, wherever you get the inspiration is, I think it also, and right back at you. I mean, even if you don't feel that you've found your stride in whatever ways, or the confidence, what you came through on such a public level, and who you seem to be, as far as what I know. And it's really, I'm not, as we mentioned, not that close, but I cannot imagine. I can only imagine what that was like. And I don't know, I feel like the grace that you showed is beyond. Beyond. And you were so young at the time.
That's the part that I think I was in that age range where you think you know everything, in your early 20s. And so I couldn't even, I think even how I've had to just process different aspects of things has shifted, because I saw the world in such a I'd only been here for a little over 2 decades, and now I've been here for 5.
Yeah.
It's a really big, it's a huge shift in how you see the world and your experiences. And I came into this situation with a lot of fucked upness. So, it only exacerbated it in some ways. But
I look at even my wife, who was 30 when we had our children. I was 45. I was like, oh God, what do we do? And Stephanie, I can't believe how she just fell into it. And I'm like, if I were 30, having twins, I would. I just don't. I hadn't had my 2012, like when I was 30, or if I went through that, the fact that you lived through that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
I really think so.
Thanks. Before I ask you the last question that I ask everybody, this is so random. One of the things that makes your comedy so great is your voice, right? And sort of your delivery on things. And I want to know what, if you have, and if yes, what it sounds like, your baby voice, or like how you talk to babies and how you talk to pets, because they're usually similar, but they're a little different. And so do you like, if a really cute little dog came in here right now?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Speaking of cute dogs, you'll see some of the cutest in Come See Me in the Good Light.
Okay.
We have 3 cats. We call our house Kitty City.
Won't make any lesbian jokes. So.
Make all you want. I am a walking lesbian joke. I love the Indigo Girls.
I'm not a lesbian, and I love the Indigo Girls. So,
well, as I said, you're smart. Yeah. So. Yeah,
maybe I'm putting you on the spot too much.
No. I mean,
Okay.
I have that voice, of course, and you're gonna make me do that.
Uh-huh.
Oh boy. Okay, we have a cat named Linus, and our other two, we have Skip, Linus, and Fluff. And Linus is the one boy, and I call him, well, it's Little Son, but the way I say it is I go, oh, little son, oh, little son, oh, little son. That's how I speak to Linus. And Skip, we call Squeakers because she talks so much. And I don't know if I just say, oh, Squeaky, oh, Squeaks, but oh, little son, oh, little son. Yeah, that's probably the voice.
So the last question I ask everybody, what's something that you want to reclaim right now? And the answer could be anything. So it could be a part of your identity, an emotion, a thing.
Wow, what do I want to reclaim? I feel like I'm on my way to reclaiming this. And I think I went so hard with my career for so long, and I took like 6 months off when Max and Finn were born. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't leave the house. We were just like in lockdown baby mode. I didn't take any work, and then I got very busy. And what I want to reclaim is, I think, more of a balance. People talk about this all the time. I've thought that I was getting closer to balance or having balance, and I was not. And it's really been interesting because I stopped touring properly. November of 2023. So I'm coming up on a year and a half of not doing a proper tour. There have been gigs that have been incoming that made sense for me to go do here or there. I don't think I've done more than 5. And that is a whole different world for me. And, I was sitting around with Stephanie these past few days saying, gosh, this must be what it's like to just be a person where, we sit and have coffee in the morning and take a walk, and I go record your show. We went to our kids' open house at school, and my day had things, but I wasn't slammed, and part of that is I've been filming. I'm on this new Star Trek series. It's called Starfleet Academy. It hasn't come out yet, but it's with Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti, and
very cool.
It's incredible cast. But anyway, I've been doing that, and I've been podcasting, but I've just not been touring, and it's just made such a difference in my life. So I want to reclaim a more balanced life. And so I'm a year and a half into it, and I'm really excited about it. It feels good.
Thank you.
Of course.
Come to my show, and I just always want there to be an exchange. And So
it was a pleasure to be here. I was very much looking forward to it. I
thanks.
do a million podcasts, and I was like, oh my God, I'm actually excited to go do this
that's
podcast.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So thanks for having me.
No, this was great.